Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. 40. It is very close. 15, 10, 5.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this podcast. As always, we're your host, Blake, my brother, Brooks. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow us on X at @chusker_corner.
I feel like for episodes like this, we really should just have instead of a nice, well-made, upbeat intro that we worked so hard on, we really should just have a one-note ding and welcome to the show. You know what I mean? Something like that, because it's more of a serious show today because we're back to reality fully. Not only is the perception of the teams and things change week from week so rapidly in college football, and this is just proof of it. Because at one point this year, I was like, we're the number 6 team in the nation. Dylan Rilo is going to win the Heisman. And now we're here, and it's like, wow, okay. I'm not ready to be completely out on rule yet. Not there yet. But this is a inflection point. That's what I'll say. You know what I mean? Like where his team goes from here. And he said it the other day in his press conference, where his team goes from here is going to say a lot about him. And unfortunately, they have Ohio State on the road right after the Indiana game. But yeah, it's an inflection point, to say the least. I'm not calling for anyone's head yet, at least publicly. Maybe coordinators and who's.
Yeah,
but anyway.
no, I'm calling. So we're not going to talk about the game super much because there's nothing super fun to talk about. I will say before the game started, probably about 30 minutes or so, you called me and I was like, I don't know. I was like, as time has gone on, we both picked him to lose, right? I picked him up to lose by 2 touchdowns, I think. But as time went on, I was just like, I don't know, dude. I don't feel it. I don't feel it going the right way. I just feel like it's going to be ugly. And you were like, I don't know. I didn't you feel the opposite way go the closer game time got?
Yeah, I just didn't expect that from our defense more than anything.
Exactly.
And it was,
and then the game played, it went on as it did. And listen, that having that many points scored on our defense. I mean, Indiana definitely wanted to make a statement. But on the other hand, the offense wasn't really helping them out very much by keeping them off the field, and, playing complimentary football. They weren't. That being said, the last time we really got beat by this, and I mean, you can get frustrated by 1-score losses, but at least you're in the game, and you can watch the whole game and be, not satisfied because it's a loss, but you can say well, but if there was none of that really this week.
No, not at all.
But last time we got beat this handily, that team went on to win the national championship. So with Michigan last year. So congratulations, Indiana fans. You're about to get your first national championship. If that's an omen. So
could be.
Yeah.
Could be. And to be fair to me, yes, we did have that conversation before the game. That is confirmed. I was like, I don't know, as the week's gone on, I've just thought more about it. And I think, I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
But I did predict a loss. I predicted a loss on the show. And one thing I did specifically mention at least twice was that we have to acknowledge that a possible outcome in this game is that Indiana's for real. They jump on quick, we fold, and it's really ugly. I did say that in our last podcast. So I also laid out the scenario that it could be the other way. We're for real. Indiana hasn't played anybody, and blah 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 blah. And honestly, that felt like the two scenarios. I feel like if Indiana really was what we thought they were going in, and they weren't for real, and they really hadn't played anybody, and then all of a sudden Nebraska plays the best possible game they can play, it could have been that way maybe. But that's not what happened. Indiana is a for real team, and Kurt Signetti looked like he just looked like straight face the whole game, pissed off at his team, up 35 points. I'm like, damn, why couldn't we have hired that guy? I'm not indicting Rule, but that's what every fan's got to be thinking. You just,
you have to
you know
think
what I
about
mean?
this
Like,
though. You have to think long-term success. Would you rather have a flash in the pan year, right? Would you rather or long-term success? So again, we were feeling the same way last year, not right around this time, a little earlier, but about Colorado. Like, how could we have missed so bad on like Rule versus like Prime? He was right there, whatever. Listen, the whole season has to play out, and then the next couple of years have to play out, see where we are. You can't take, and that's what people have a tendency to do. They look at like what just happened and then indict on a whole, and especially in football, like they do that all the time. I mean, if you look at Alabama, I mean, I think one of my predictions was that Alabama was going to take a step back this year, and nobody really thought that, but now they are 2 losses, and they could easily have a third by the end of the regular season, and miss out on the college football playoffs, which they should at this point. They should.
Well, and it also
But
shows you how volatile any position in an argument can be at any one time
yeah,
in a season in college football. Because, like, at the halftime, like, my argument going into the year was like, look at DeBoer's record. He's
yeah,
getting the keys to a Ferrari. They're going to be just as good, if not better, you know, because he's got the youth on his side, right? So that was my argument. And at the halftime of the Georgia game, I was right. In doubt, like, you wouldn't have been able to argue from the other side. You know what I mean? But now, as things have played out over the last couple of weeks, you're right. You're
yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah.
You know what I
See,
mean? So it just goes to show you, you know,
yeah,
like,
things can change
um,
like that, right?
yeah,
Things that need to change immediately for Nebraska. Let's circle it back to us.
right.
Is our offense is horribly run. We have too
Yeah.
much talent to do what we did. They're getting the wrong people the ball on the wrong type of plays. And when I say like that, like they've trying to run screens to our tight end, who's a possession tight end, right? I understand people do that with tight ends now. I don't like it in general, but why are you throwing him a screen in the backfield? Like why are you trying to get him the ball in space, right? That's not
So
what you do, right?
agreed. And we
And
can
then
argue over X's and O's, but I mean, like, dude,
and
I'm
then
just
also,
laughing at Sat, bro.
yeah.
Sat, the thing everybody's talking about is, and I just thought of this analogy. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but this is worth it. Imagine you ask a coach, like an offensive coach, imagine you ask him, like, hey, brother, like, post to me, like, what would you want your offense to be ranked? And he looks at you and he goes, it's like with a completely straight face. He looks at you with a completely straight face. He goes, somewhere between last and 56th in the nation. You know what I mean? And that's basically what happened. He was asked, Satterfield this week was asked, what is your target yards per play? Which is like, dude, that's a basic analytic. I'm sorry, bro. Like, that's something an offensive coordinator should be dialed in on. And he goes 4 to 6 yards. I don't know. Like, I don't know, 4 to 6 yards. You know, you tell me. You tell me. It was just such a bad answer. And then like Barstool picked it up and like, so dude, I'm to the point with Sat where it's like, we can argue over X's and O's all day, but man, the problem is obvious. I mean, last year the excuse was evident. He had a quarterback that had a limited throwing game. We had a lot of injuries on both the offensive line and in the running back room. But this year he has a 5-star quarterback. There's very few injury. We had Turner out, but he's been, suspect for his whole time here anyway. But anyway, so everything should have been smooth this year. And now here we are, and he's laying out his goal as the ceiling 56th best team in the nation if we're basing it on yards per play. So it's time. I'm sorry, Rule. That's where I am with Sat. It's time with Sat. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. And he could make us, again, week by week, he could make us look silly at one point. But yeah, so in terms of like where our season stands from, whenever you make predictions, you always want to be, you want to err on the side of caution and then be wrong,
Right.
On the plus side. But I'm not like throwing away the whole season. I'm not. There's a lot of people that are like completely just hopped off the bandwagon. But if you look at this, they're 5-2 going into Ohio State. I had us being 5-2 going into Ohio State, and you had us being 5-1. So we're both not very far off from where we
No.
are. And look,
Yes.
5-2 heading into November.
Yeah.
Okay? Like
Completely agree.
where we were to where we are, and I said this about Indiana. We can move on after this point if you want, but I said this about Indiana. Tom Allen did not have that program in complete shambles when Cignetti took over. And people are acting like they were, and they were this big laughingstock. They were 1 year removed from being a really good football team. And, they're still always competing, right? So, again, we were in shambles when Rule took over. Not by like margin of margin of loss, but like if you look at like our totals, we were. So you have to look at it that way. We're trending in the right direction. We have, but we need like a win here just this season. We need a win where we weren't expected to win.
Yeah,
for the confidence of the team. I don't really give a shit about the fan base right now because the fan base is so fickle. And we're just always like, oh, I hope. It for the program in general, we need a win at an Ohio State. We need to be at USC, at Iowa. One of those 3 games we need to hit on. The other 2 are at home against toss-ups. At least one of them's a toss-up with Wisconsin. But like we need to win one of those 3 games to really, I don't know, propel the program forward.
And they're winnable. All of them are really but with the struggles we've seen, if they keep playing themselves out the way they have, all of them are going to be losable too. And I tell you what, you talked about our fan base being fickle. Our fan base is more fickle than Wisconsin's fan base, and that's really saying something because their coach, his name's Fickle. So anyway. Yeah. Anyway, an alternate. Okay, so I've heard a lot of people, not a lot, but I saw one guy going in on like, how this is the turning point. I'm done with Rule and blah, 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 blah. And like he was being hyperbolic and ridiculous. Okay. But he did bring up a couple of good points, which were like, okay, like that's an alternate way to start looking at this. And I want you to flash back with me like a year ago when we were, a little over a year ago when the coaching search was happening. And one of the things I said was we need to hire somebody who doesn't bring any of their own baggage. You know what I mean? Who comes in with the pedigree to make us confident right off the bat. Well, we're already having the conversation about Rule, having the record against ranked teams and all that stuff. But I want to pose this to you, that both Baylor and Temple, okay, we talk about like, oh, he rebuilt them on the field. As far as recent success, past 5 years before Rule took over, both Temple and Baylor on the field were probably better than us. Matter of fact, definitely better than us. Baylor. So as far as on, like, yes, Baylor, especially off the field, lots of stuff Rule had to manage and figure out and put out a lot of fires. So it's both commendable and like, yes, Rule is a good coach. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's a different way to look at it where it's like, okay, he's doing something maybe a little different here that he hasn't quite done there, where it was like there were things that were holding Temple back, but they had recent decent success. Same thing with Baylor. There were things that were holding them back and scandals and all that stuff. But as far as recent success, Broyles was just fired and he had a good program. So there was stuff there to work with. I guarantee it. But anyway, so now Rule comes in and we've had 7 years of no bowl game. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like he's trying to build something out of nothing. And maybe arguably this is the first time he's done that. Right. So that's a different sort of spin and way to look at it that I don't hear anybody really talking about, or an angle, I guess, that I don't really see anybody taking. And it's not an indictment on it. I'm not a non-believer about Rule being a coach here. I still think he can work. I just think that that's something to watch moving forward. It's like nothing's 100%. We all thought Scott Frost was going to be the guy. You know what I mean? Like, so we got to hold it accountable. And I've always said when we were looking for new coaches, like, man, when we know, we're going to know soon. We're going to know like quick. And it's still a question. So like it needs to be answered relatively in the next year and a half. It needs to be answered. That's
Well,
all I'll
yeah,
say.
I mean, we can't drag on another coach like
Yeah.
we did with Frost for sure.
No.
But again, you can't take one game as a microcosm of the culture
Agreed.
and the
Agreed.
entire team.
Agreed.
Because again, we've won 40-7, 28-10, 34-3, lost one score game, 28-10, 14-7, and then
Agreed.
lost. Okay, look at that. And
No, you're right.
Okay, people just need to calm down, take a breath, and see how our last 4 games pan out. Because as we are going to discuss right now,
No, it's easy to sit here and
yeah.
talk like that when we're coming off the backs of an Indiana loss like that, and then looking forward at an Ohio State
Yeah.
game that we think we know how it's going to end. So,
Yeah.
I didn't want to go too on and on about it, but yeah, it's just a different way to think about it. But yeah, Ohio State. Let's see what we think.
Ohio State. So it's not looking good. They're last week could not have gone worse for the team's psyche. The fan base, again, it is what it is. But for the team's psyche to get blown out on the road against a team that you were heavily favored to the beginning of the season, and the narrative was like Nebraska was probably going to be like undefeated going into Ohio State, and now we're 5-2 going into Ohio State, having to play prime time. That's another thing. We got our asses kicked in prime time again. Well, big noon. I don't know. I wouldn't really call it prime time, but
I hate that that's made its way into the zeitgeist. It's not prime time. It's
not
shit,
prime time.
shit hour o'clock is what we should start calling
but
it.
now we have to play it again with
shit hour o'clock again.
Fox just wanted to doom us for these next 2 games.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
They're because we don't do well on big noon kickoff. Never have.
Yeah.
But I'm not very hopeful. My only hope is that Kyle
McCord. Yeah.
Will Howard is not a game winner. So if we can
only hope.
If we can put a lot of pressure on him, we'll at least make it respectable, I think. But that's a big if. So
I mean, let me to give you an idea. I had more confidence heading into the 2021 game than I do this one. That game was at home, so I'll give it that. But we were a 3-7 team probably by that point, and 3-6.
3-6. If we lost that game, officially we were.
But that Ohio State team had one of the best receiving cores of the last 25 years, and CJ Stroud as their quarterback.
Yeah,
so
wild.
So, and I was like, we went to the game, and I was going to it thinking, we're a scrappy little team. Maybe we can do this, and it was close. It was, and we showed them we were scrappy. But I just don't see, as funny as this is, I think that 3-9 team is better than this team.
Yeah, with just a little bit better coaching.
Isn't that wild? Like, just a little bit better coaching. I think that 3-9 team actually has more heart than what we've seen out of this team so far. I got to be honest. Like, when their backs were against the wall, they didn't come through ever, but like they always fought. You know what I mean? They always almost came through. You know what I mean? They never got killed like that. I'm sorry. Like, and they play all the teams. So anyway, we'll see. The thing that's sort of keeping me hanging on to hope is just being a college football fan broadly. The way I look at this game, trying to look at it outside of being a Nebraska fan, is like, man, this has been a really weird year. And what would make it even weirder is if coming off of getting killed to Indiana, this Nebraska team comes out of nowhere and like plays Ohio State close, or even, steals one from them. That's the only thing that's keeping me hanging on. It's just like sort of like a zany fan fiction type of hope.
I mean, eventually it has to happen, right?
Yeah.
So why not this week? I'm just going to say, this is where my hopes are for this game. I'm probably going to be golfing.
Yeah.
Not probably. I'm going to be golfing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be following on my phone, but like last week I stopped watching in the fourth quarter, so I made it through 3 quarters. And then after that I was just like, you know what? I don't really want to waste my Saturday. So
I'm going to show the team respect, and I'm going to turn the game on, and I'm going to give them a chance. And if I don't like what I see early, then I'll probably just like go on a walk, maybe listen to the game on Huskers.com, something like that. But it's one of those games. I mean, like that last game was the same thing. It was so funny. It was like one of those games where like I was super into it for the first and second quarter, and then you just look back, like it's the game's in the fourth quarter, and you look back and you're just kind of like laughing at yourself for how much you were cheering at this game that really like you had no idea.
Well, I mean that 1-2 punch of like when we were driving down to try to score before half. And then he throws the pick that like almost scores, and then they get the ball in great field position, then they're able to go up another score. That kind of sealed it, probably, honestly. Like if we were able to score there, we make it what a
I gotta be honest. I mean, there was things that we could have done early to like maybe shift momentum, and who the hell knows. But I got to be honest, based off of what I saw, that Indiana team seemed much more talented than us. As wild as that is, they just seemed better. They were better. And your score, I believe, was what, 35-21. If all that stuff goes according to plan perfectly, like we're talking about, if woulda, coulda, should, if all that stuff goes our way, that's probably the score, something like that, 35-21. So yeah, you were probably the most spot on out of really everybody I listened to, because most people were like, oh, it's going to be close. I see Nebraska taking this one. Oh, it's going to be close. We'll see. And I predicted a loss, but nobody saw this coming. And, it was defensive. It was really defensive. But, I saw our offense playing the way they did. I saw that coming. I kind of saw that as a possibility, but defense playing the way they did, no.
Yeah.
So they got a challenge this week. Ohio State is going to be every bit of what that Indiana offense was and more. So we'll see how they respond.
With a downgrade at the quarterback position.
I think I agree with that. Yeah, I do agree. And probably a down. I will say this too: a downgrade of just overall organization as an organization. I would argue, dude, that Indiana program was impressive to me.
Yeah. Well, and again, I haven't watched Ohio State very much because it's kind of boring to watch a team when they're going to beat them against Acorn State University.
Yeah.
I watched the first half of the Marshall game, and Marshall actually was playing them close a little bit. And then they got hosed on a couple calls, like where they would have gotten the ball in the red zone on a muff punt that they called like a weird penalty. And it was just like they made it up, so Iowa State didn't have to give up the ball there. Then there was a couple other penalties that got Marshall out of it, but they were playing them pretty close there for a little bit. That was the only game really I watched. I mean, I didn't watch like any college football after our game last week, so I did not watch. I mean, they didn't play last week, but I didn't watch anything last week. And then the week before that, it was a bye week, so didn't do much college football watching because I was doing other stuff. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I've watched highlights. I know I've seen enough of Will Howard to know who he is. I know they have a great receiving core. Their defense is stout. I'm just
they're good.
I'm just going to go into the predictions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to predict. Let's see, they scored 56, so 112. No.
Don't be like that.
No. I think score's probably around 42-10.
Okay.
Ohio State.
Fair enough. I think that I still have faith in this as much as I was just trying to give everybody all the angles of everything, right? That we're thinking about right now. I'm not indicting anybody permanently. I just want to reiterate that. But I do have belief in this coaching staff. And I do think that, like, after a defeat like that, all we've seen so far is, like, he's gotten popped in the mouth. They got popped in the mouth against Michigan, and then they came out against Illinois, I believe was the next game last year, and dominated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, offense, was terrible overall last year, but team dominated that game.
Yep.
And now we got popped in the mouth again. Worst case scenario, we're going to Columbus to play Ohio State. Okay. but I still have faith in their ability to prepare our team and the ability of them to turn it around. I do.
Mhm.
So I think that what will happen is it'll be like a slow burn in the first half. Ohio State's going to be up like 21-3 going into halftime, but then maybe we get the ball to start the second half and have like a nice long drive, and it's 21-10, and everyone's like freaking out. Oh, and then eventually it's just like a couple things don't go our way. Ohio State pulls away, and it's like 38-4 or 38-14. That'd be two safeties. 38 to let's say I'm gonna say it's gonna be like a 38-13 game.
38.
So I say it's like respectable, and like we're coming out of it saying, you know what, like they're a really good team. That was not terrible. That's what we're saying by the end of it. I think.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's been just counting this as a loss on our schedule since the season started. That probably doesn't sit well with the team. I'll just say that it probably doesn't. So they better give them the best shot. Otherwise, you just give those people power that are like, oh, that's a loss, even though you have to play the stupid game. So,
well, they average 43, or it's like 42.5 something points per game. Ohio State does. So if we can do what I said, we can hold them to 38 points. I think that's really respectable. And I think objectively as a fan, no matter how you emotionally felt during the game, you have to come away from it thinking like, okay, like there's something to build on here at the very least. Ohio State's one of the best teams in the nation. And we got some games we got to win. We got to go. I mean, we got to go to a bowl game, but I'd really like at least 7 wins, man. If we can get 2 wins in this last couple of games, man, that would make me feel good going forward, I think. So, anyway,
for sure. But I listen. This has been a depressing episode here, but I think that's warranted from the team's performance last week, and we don't get to play
we were embarrassed. They went out there and embarrassed us. Let's like call it like it is. Okay. We were all like ready to back the team up. We all blocked our day off. And then all of a sudden, what we thought was going to be a 3-hour long affair became a 1-hour long affair, if even that. And by the third quarter, I was going on a run. I was doing more important things.
Yeah.
So, and we yes, they put the work in, but as fans, we spend all year in anticipation. And as lifelong Nebraska fans, we've spent our whole lives in anticipation of a magical season that as young Nebraska fans, we've never really gotten to experience. And they embarrassed us. So, yeah, we have every right to be depressed. But there is hope. I do believe there is hope. So, yes.
Okay. Yeah, with that being said, as always, like
this podcast.